If you love Ikea's Swedish meatballs, then you are going to love this homemade Swedish meatballs and gravy recipe. I'm Christina from It Is a Keeper. I share tried and true recipes that anyone can make. I believe if you can read, you can cook. Welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm showing you how to make traditional Swedish meatballs in a creamy gravy, but this is so much better than the Scandinavian home stores. Now, I have to confess that I am half Norwegian, and I was told from a very, very young age that the Norwegians made better meatballs than the Swedes. And honestly, I loved my grandma's Norwegian meatballs. She made the absolute best. Mine don't even come close. But I have to admit that this recipe is pretty dang good, but shh, don't tell her that. Now make sure you stay tuned to the end to learn my favorite tips for making these meatballs even easier. And be sure to grab the full printable recipe in the video description below. So the first thing we need to do to make our Swedish meatballs is we need to get the meatballs started. So it all starts with a blend of beef and pork. So I have some ground beef and some ground pork here, not sausage, just plain ground pork. And I like to use a beef blend of either a 90-10 or an 80-20 fat to meat ratio, or fat to lean ratio. You can use whichever you prefer. Fat equals flavor though, so if you want more flavorful meatballs, use the higher fat content. And to that, we're also going to add some unseasoned breadcrumbs. Now I prefer the unseasoned in here. This way I can control what seasonings go into it. So I have the unseasoned breadcrumbs, I have my meats. To this, I'm going to add an egg. One whole egg right in there. And then we add these seasonings. So here I have some minced onion, some of my all-purpose seasoning to add that salt and pepper, a little bit of allspice and nutmeg. So in they go. And then we just get in with our, oh, forgot the last one, some parsley. So I just have some parsley that I minced up. Then we're gonna get in with our hands and get this all mixed together. I find that the hands are just the easiest way to go. You wanna be careful too that you're not over mixing the meat, right? We just want everything combined. You don't wanna overdo it because that'll make a tough meatball, and nobody wants a tough meatball. All right, these are perfect. So I have here a baking sheet that I have some parchment paper on. So we're just going to scoop our meatballs onto that, and I'd like to use this meatball scooper or cookie scooper, whichever use you're using it for. This way I know I get the same size meatballs every time, and there's no fighting over who gets the better meatball. So we just scoop and roll. This will make 16 to 18 meatballs. So our meatballs are rolled. We're going to pop them into the oven. They need about 30 to 40 minutes to bake at about 350. And while they're baking, we're going to work on the sauce or the gravy for our meatballs. So I'm gonna pop these in the oven and we'll get started on the gravy. Okay, so now we're going to start on the gravy. So to our skillet here, I'm going to add a couple tablespoons of butter, and we're going to let that melt. Okay, so our butter is melted, and to this we're going to add some flour. So we're gonna make a roux here. And we want to cook this until it starts to brown. So that's where you're developing the flavor, is in the browning of the butter and the flour. So not only are we cooking off that raw flour taste, but we're enhancing the flavor. We're getting the nuttiness out of the butter, and that's how we're building the flavors of this sauce. So I think we're just about there. You can see how there's some lighter and some darker colors in this roux. I'm just gonna mix it all together. You can smell the nuttiness from the browning butter. Oh, I'm telling you, flavor right here. So it's almost like a light caramel color, and that's exactly what we're looking for. So to this, we're going to add some beef broth. So that's what's going to, and I drizzle it in slowly so I don't get lumps. Whisking as you go, but be careful you don't steam yourself. All right. And our roux is gonna thicken this sauce up. But to this, we're going to add a bit of Worcestershire sauce, and this is just gonna kick up that umami flavor. And then our last ingredient here is going to be some heavy cream. So this is going to provide the creaminess to our sauce. That added fat just, oh, amazing. And because I used sodium-free chicken broth, or sodium-free beef broth, I'm going to add some of my all-purpose seasoning to this. Now, if you added the broth with sodium, you can hold back a little bit on the salt, but I know mine wasn't salted, so I like to control what I put in there. So I always buy the low sodium or no sodium broth. So we're just gonna let this hang out and let it simmer away. It's going to thicken while our meatballs finish up in the oven. Okay, so you can see our sauce has thickened up nicely. It's perfect. And here's how we tell when it's ready. You're gonna take a spoon, run that through, pick it up and draw a line down the back of it. And if that line stays, your sauce is perfect. That's how we tell. So our meatballs have come out of the oven. I am going to grab my towel here, and we're just going to add those right into the sauce. And we're gonna let them finish up just till they're warmed through. They should be pretty warm if they just came out of the oven, or if you made them and froze them, even better. Perfect. So I'm just gonna make sure everything is coated, and we're gonna let those become one with our sauce, and then we're gonna serve them up. Just look at how hearty these look. Not those tiny little ones you get at the store. These are so much better. And before we dig in, I'm going to share some tips for making this recipe even easier. First, I always make a double batch of the meatballs. Since I've already got my hands dirty, I just bake up 2 batches and freeze one for later. Then all I have to do is make the sauce. Now, the key to the rich and flavorful sauce is browning the roux. So we want to coax as much flavor out of that butter as we can, because that's what's going to give us that warm nuttiness. And if you really want to be authentic, serve these meatballs with the lingonberry jelly. And you can get that at Ikea. And it's that sweet tartness that pairs perfectly with these meatballs. But enough chit chat, we're gonna dig into these bad boys. So I'm going to scoop a couple onto my plate here. Now you can serve these over buttered noodles, like some egg noodles. That would be delicious. You can serve them with rice, mashed potatoes. So the Norwegian ones we always have with mashed potatoes, or in Norway I have them with like a boiled type potato. I've also had Danish meatballs, which are very good as well. So that's another version of this. And then I'm gonna just sprinkle a little bit of minced parsley over top just for some freshness. Give some freshness to the recipe. A little bright green, never hurt anybody. But I'm going in because I can't wait. I wish I had the lingonberry jam though for you. Sop it up in that sauce. Oh yeah. These Swedish meatballs and gravy are definitely a keeper, but don't tell my grandmother that I'm sharing them with you. There are so many great meatball recipes out there. I have an incredible honey garlic meatball recipes you can make in 15 minutes. You don't want to miss it. Check it out here. I'll see you over there.